Hey, thank you all so much for joining another episode of Celeste The Therapist Podcast. My name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. If you've never been into this podcast, I appreciate you being here. What I do is I talk about issues that we go through, and then I kind of help you think about ways in which you can challenge yourself and deal with it. I am located in Massachusetts, and I also have a wellness center located in Stoughton, Mass, where we hold classes and we hold different somatic classes and workshops, things to help you with your wellness journey. Because I believe that once we take one step into creating change, it's easier to keep going, right? It's harder. The first step is the hard part. So, if you do listen to this podcast, one of the things that I recommend is like getting a notebook and a pen and writing things down. Writing it down and making it plain can really help. A lot of times we'll hear a podcast, we'll go to a workshop, we'll go to something motivating, and it feels really good. And then once we leave, we're back into the environment. And if you live in America, everything is so chaotic. So it's easy to feel discouraged and feel as if like change can't happen. So one of the things that I believe is like when we work on changing the mind, I was listening to Myron, I forgot his last name. He's a motivational speaker, but he said the mind is the command center of our life. And if you feel like your mind is so chaotic and you struggle with making time to be still, being still feels scary because you're forced to listen to your thoughts, understand that you're allowing your trauma, your history, society to control your life. And if you feel like things are always happening to you, a lot of times that's going on because of what's going on in the mind. So before we get started, I just want to share I have two books. I'm going to try to make sure to talk about it every single episode. I have a guided journal. So I'm also on YouTube. So if you're listening to me on YouTube, if you're listening to me on audio, you can hop on YouTube and see the visuals. I'm a very visual learner. So it's important to me to provide visual content for people as I'm talking about things. So I have a guided journal. It's called 365 Days of Intentional Living. Every day I ask you a different question, and then halfway through the book, I'm asking you that same question that I asked you on day one, just so you can see how your things have changed over the course of what is it, half of 365, right? To see how things have changed. This is a great journal for people that may be in therapy or not in therapy, not sure how to start reflecting. Journaling is a great way to reflect. I also have a book called Relationship Goals, and it's a guide to a healthy relationship, where I give these different staples on what a healthy relationship looks like, meaning basically like maintaining your individuality, understanding what you want. There are a lot of staples that we are not clear on, and we're not understanding why we are struggling in relationships. And a lot of times it's due to the way that we have thought about relationships, right? I came up with the title because I would see on social media people would put under people's pictures hashtag relationship goals based off of a little clip or a video. And the reality is like a healthy relationship is more than just a picture. So those are the two books you can find on my website, stwyt.com. And then we also, these are the classes that we host. These are staple classes at the center. We host these every single month. So we have restorative yoga class. That's always the last Friday of the month. And then we have a class called Mindful Yin and another class called Rest and Restore. All of these classes were created in order to help people work on slowing down their nervous system. We don't realize how much we hold pain in our body. So, a lot of times, like intellectually, if you feel like I'm making the connections, I understand what's going on, but I'm still feeling stuck. A lot of times, that could be because there's a lot that's happening inside of your body, and creating a space to release it is important. And so, we have somatic classes here at the center. If you go to stwyt.com, you can learn more about those classes and attend. And then, if you're not familiar with me, if this is your first time here, one of the things that's important to me is for you to not look at these podcast episodes as like just a feel good session. I really want you to try to use it as a way for you to get what you need. One of the things that I understand is that when it comes to wellness, a lot of times we try to put a price tag on it. And a lot of times it's true. Like a lot of the things that can really help us with our process cost money. And I never want people to think that because things cost money, they're not able to heal. So that's why I try to offer all of these kind of resources and a way for people to rethink what wellness looks like so that they're not like, oh, well, I don't have a therapist or I don't have a psychiatrist, so I can't give myself what I need. I really want people to understand, like, despite what they have, despite what they don't have, it's really important for us to like use what we have and start where we are. And if we can do that, life looks differently. So we are streaming on all podcasting platforms, and I've been doing this since 2018. And I started this because I was actually going live on a few platforms, and on Fridays I would answer questions, and I realized just how much people don't understand a lot of the basics of life. I call them like the ABCs of life. Like imagine trying to read, but you don't know your alphabets. And I think about life, and I think about we're trying to do life, but we don't understand the emotions, we don't understand the basics. And so it gets really challenging. Today's topic: when emotions and logic clash, the power of intentional living. You see my book, my journal is called 365 Days of Intentional Living because I believe it's so important for us to be intentional about what we're choosing to do. I always say if you start your day scrolling, playing games, doing anything that does not pertain to you growing, starting your day sets the tone. And a lot of times we don't even start our day with us. We start our day with the emails, with everything else but us. And then we struggle and not understanding why we feel how we feel. And it's like, well, what am I feeding my system? So there's so much growth in being intentional, right? And not doing things based off of how we feel, but our intent. So, emotions versus logic, right? It's important for you to understand. So, emotions are subjective feelings, right? Like in this moment, I can feel nervous. And let's say I'm about to speak, I have a speaking engagement. And maybe one time I had a speaking engagement, I didn't do well. And so my mind will go back to the time I had the speaking engagement and I didn't go well. And the nervousness could be due to the fact that my mind is thinking, like, oh, it's happening again. So technically, nothing's happening in front of me, but the feeling of what's happening is real. And luckily for me, I'm able to make connections when those moments happen, right? So something that happened 20 years ago could affect you in 2025, and you may not even realize that's what's going on. And so let's say I start to feel nervous, but I'm prepared, right? So I tell myself, Celeste, you're prepared, you got this. But what if I don't allow logic to take over and I say, I can't do this, right? And speaking may be my passion, helping people may be my passion, but I'll never be able to push forward with what I feel like my passion and my goals in life are because I'm allowing the emotion to take over and rule the way that I operate. So, emotions are subjective feelings, often directed towards a specific object that involve physiological and behavioral changes. Whether you realize it or not, there are behavioral, physical changes that take place when you are struggling with some emotion. Sometimes people talk about their throat feels like it's closing in on them, their stomach is turning, their back is hurting, right? There are a lot of things that are happening in your body when you're dealing with some of these emotions. So logic, on the other hand, is a system of reasoning and principle used to determine the truth or falsity of a conclusion. While emotions are personal experience, logic relies on rational thought analysis. And so another example is like if you're dating somebody and you know that the relationship logically doesn't work, but emotionally you feel so attached, right? And this could be a whole topic about relationships. I love talking about relationships. But the attachment could be because they may remind you of your absentee dad, right? Even though it's like, why would I want to be with somebody who doesn't show up for me like my dad didn't show up for me? You don't realize that that's happening. You don't realize that you're attached because it's a familiar feeling of this person not being available to you, right? And so you find yourself feeling like you're stuck in this relationship and you're like, I don't know why I'm in this. Like logically, I know they're not good for me. And so that's a prime example on how logic and emotion don't match. You can find yourself feeling so drawn to somebody, logically knowing it's not true. And that's why I say going off of intention and reasoning versus how you feel is important. A lot of us are operating life based off of how we feel, and we don't realize that's happening. So that's the difference between emotion and logic. Their emotions are feelings, logic is you're using reasoning, right? So emotions can cloud your judgment. Emotions are significantly influencing decision making, sometimes leading to bias or irrational choices due to clouded judgment. While emotions can be a valuable guide, strong feelings can impair critical thinking and result in poor decisions. How many, if you're being honest with yourself, how many of you can say like you've had some irrational decisions that you've made over the years, over the course of years, right? Impulsive things that you've done and not understanding why. A lot of times this is happening because that rush of emotion is coming and you're not used to making a pause. You're not used to even recognizing it's happening. I tell people sometimes the emotion may hit you in your body before you intellectually understand what's going on, which is why it's very important to pay attention to what's going on in your body. The more you pay attention to what's going on in your body, the more you'll understand the signs that your body is giving that it's struggling and it's not okay. And you may ask, like, well, why does this happen, Celeste? A lot of times growing up, our parents were in survival mode. They didn't have the capacity to teach us how to listen to our body because they wasn't even listening to their body, right? So if they're not listening to their body, how the heck they're going to teach us how to listen to our body? And so it's so important to understand that just because you were not taught how to listen to your body, how to understand the signs, doesn't mean you can't understand the signs. You're human, you're not a robot. So you're going to have these experiences that is so important for you to understand. So really being mindful on the emotions and how they've affected your judgment because you don't have to keep living life that way. Now, this picture for people that are listening, I have a picture where it shows emotional mind versus logic mind. And it says emotional mind reacts from feelings, energy levels, and psychological states and needs, while the logic mind responds using logic, cause and effect, reasoning, analysis of possible consequences. If we merge these together, right, we'll get a wise mind, right? Seeks to synthesize and balance logic and emotion perspectives and to serve the highest good, being more mindful. So I'm conscious of my emotions and my experiences and what I'm feeling. I'm also conscious about my logic mind, right? I'm able to understand reasoning, and I have more moments of making sure I'm using my wise mind, being more mindful about my decisions than not. Years ago, I was very impulsive, very much in the moment, and now, like the baseline in which I operate is with a wise mind, right? Does that mean I don't have emotions? Does that mean I don't feel that impulse that wants to bleed in? No, I have all of those feelings, but now they're not controlling me. If you want to work on not being controlled and feeling like you don't have any say so in life and life is happening to you, you got to really work on being able to pause, being able to reflect. Now, there's importance in attention, like the importance of intention. So, being intentional is so important because when you're able to act with intention, it involves purposeful, proactive choices based on understanding goals while reacting based on emotions. It's a spontaneous, impulsive response driven by immediate feelings. So, intentionally acting allows for clear thinking and considered action, while reacting can lead to impulse decisions and negative consequence. And I'll just give you a quick example, right? How many of you have said you wanted to start your day earlier in the morning? You wanted to get up so that you're not rushing into work. Or how many of you said, I want to get up and do a walk or a stretch? Raise your hand, right? I'm sure I can't see you, but I know a lot of people are raising their hands. What happens in the morning? In the morning time, you don't feel like getting up. So what do? You don't get up. And then you snooze your alarm, and then you find yourself in a space of feeling like, oh, I'll do this tomorrow, and then rushing into work. Right now, you're starting your day um, with depletion, not with giving. When you give to yourself, oh my gosh, you could be so full and starting your day. There may be a little traffic, somebody may cut you off, but you're not finding yourself struggling as much because you started your day with you and you feel replenished. And so, how does that work? If I don't want to go based off of my feeling, if I want to be intentional the night before, let's say I'm going to do a stretch, right? The night before, I'm setting my alarm. As soon as my alarm goes off, I'm jumping up. If you stay in bed, your mind will talk you out of it. Your mind will tell you, oh, well, maybe you could do it tomorrow, right? So, if you want to think about why intentionality is important, because if we are not intentional about what we're choosing to do, we will be controlled by our feelings, and our feelings change. How many times have you went to the gym or went to a workout class that you didn't feel like going, and you're like, oh my gosh, this was actually not bad? Or how many times were you not going to go with a friend out, and you went out and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I did it, right? It's the starting that's the hard part. But once you start and get there, you'll start to feel the replenishment that you need. You'll never get there if you don't start, right? So if you want to think about like being intentional, how do I allow myself to not allow emotions to take over? Emotions are going to happen. We can't get around emotions, but how do I not allow it to take over through routine, through discipline and intentionality? Now, some strategies for balance in emotion and logic, right? Because it's not only important for me to tell you what we're struggling with, but how do I challenge and work through it? Pausing and reflecting. So, taking a moment to breathe and assess your feelings before reacting is always good, right? So, in order for you to, how do I take a moment to pause before I react? I need to notice when I'm struggling. How do I notice when I'm struggling? Getting more in tune with my body because my body's giving me signs, right? So, taking time to pause and reflect is important. Journaling, great way to get more in tune with what's going on. How do I journal? Literally, like I have a guided journal, but even if you don't want to get my guided journal, there's a paper and a notebook, right? You can ask yourself the same questions every day to start the process, right? You can Google, like, what are some good questions to ask myself at night? I'll tell you the four we ask our children at night is, how are you feeling? What are you grateful for? What did you do to prepare for tomorrow? And what went well today? Those questions I did intentionally so that they can tap into how they're feeling, tapping into like understanding the gratitude in the day, right? Because we get so caught up in the trauma and the drama of life that we forget what we have. And when we forget what we have, we feel miserable. I always say there are people in third world countries that are walking around smiling with not nowhere near the amount of materialism, the material things that we have here in America, right? And so we have allowed life to consume us, and especially being black in America, if you're a black woman working in corporate, working in white spaces, right? And when I'm working with people and they're talking about this stuff, and I'm like, it's not you, it's the system. You're in a system that doesn't see you, but I need you to see you. Like that's so important. Regardless of who sees me, I need to see me. And so because of all of these things, we find ourselves struggling. So keeping a journal and reflecting will allow you to see things more clear, so you're not allowing life to consume you. Seeking feedback is another one. So discussing feelings and decisions with trusted friends or mentors, like people that you trust, right? Everybody's not bad, and some people are blessed enough to have somebody that, like a coach or a friend, where they can bounce things off of and get clarity and get more understanding. And then the last thing I want to say is the identifying your core values. So to identify your core values, you can start with reflecting on what truly matters to you in life. So you're going to consider all your past experiences, identifying the principles you hold dear, and trying to narrow them down. So if you never thought about like what your core values are, some examples I got from an Instagrammer, Hey Goal Sister. integrity, leadership, growth, honesty, accountability, family, fun, stability, faith, creativity, adventure. These are just some values, right? Now, let's say your core value is family and I'm looking for another one, communication, right? Like it's important to me for me to take time with my family and to communicate with my partner. And if I sit down with myself and I'm always working, right? They have games, they have all these things going on. I'm never attending. Am I really truly living out my core values, right? I haven't put them in my calendar because I tell myself I don't have time. But then if I look at my phone and see how much I'm scrolling, right? When you say look at your values and then check your phone and then tell me you don't have time. If your phone is showing me that you are not on social media all day or not on YouTube watching things or Netflix, right? Or games, these games get addictive. Look at your phone and then if everything is clear and you tell me you don't have time, I would love to hear from you. Let me know you don't have time because a lot of times we have time but we allow society to consume us and then we start vegging out on our phones, vegging out on movies and shows. So if I'm gonna stick with the example of me saying family is important to me, like, and I realize that I'm not living out my core value, then I need to go back to the drawing board and start to look at what can I do to make this happen. A lot of times we have these core values that we haven't identified consciously, but they've been like growing up. If we look back, we're like, yeah, that was me. That's what I said I wanted. If we really take time to reflect, we'll start to realize, like, dang, you know what? Like, I'm not living out my values. I'm not communicating with my spouse. I'm not living by faith. I'm living by fear. So, strategies for balancing your emotion and logic, a huge part of it is being able to identify your core values. And once you identify them, make sure that you're walking in alignment with what that looks like. So, this is something emotion, logic, right? Both are important, but a lot of times we're allowing the emotion to take over. So my challenge to you, right, is to start to pay attention to what your body's saying. Start to pay attention to your emotions. You can Google feelings chart, right? Grab a feelings chart. Check in with how you're feeling. Everything starts with awareness. If you're struggling in life and you're trying to figure out the next step, start to pay attention to your day to day. What am I doing? What do I need? If you Google wellness will, it'll show you a pie graph with like the different areas of your life, social, emotional, environmental, professional. And so it'll show you these areas. You can start there and look at that and start to dissect. Okay, what do I want in this area? What are my values in this area? What kind of work environment do I want? And I want to be clear that just because you become aware and understand what you want, it may take time to get there, but until you create a plan to work on getting there, you'll always find yourself feeling miserable. But if you work on creating a plan, you won't feel so miserable because you know, like, you're not going to be stuck in the same place. The reason why we feel miserable and feel stuck is because we're not doing anything to change it. Make today the day you start to do something to change it. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this makes sense. I always tell people if anything I say resonates for you, understand you have the power to make the change, but you have to really start to have faith and believing in yourself. When you start having faith, when you believe in yourself, I promise you nobody can take that away from you. The mind is so powerful, which is why my wellness center is called Shifting the Way You Think, because my goal is to keep shifting, help people shift. Because if we're stuck, if we're not shifting our thought process, we're not growing. I want to see you grow, right? If you want to grow, continue listening to this podcast because I'm always going to come out with different nuggets that's going to help you grow and help you see yourself the way life is should look like, not versus what life has been like in the trauma that you've experienced. Like, we're going to acknowledge it, but we don't want that to be the lens on where we're seeing ourselves for the future. Until next time, beautiful people, I will talk to you later.